and welcome to a special episode of Inside Edition. Today we're going to cover the recent visit of the President of the Inter-Parliamentary Union, Gabriela Baron, to the Kingdom of Bahrain, during which she was received by His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa in addition to many other senior officials. IPU President Ms. Gabriela Baron, from a young age, was sincerely indifferent to the life of society. During her primary and secondary education, she went to a religious school and performed social work in nursing homes and health centers in poor rural areas. Having noticed the misuse of taxes taking place in one of them, she came to a conclusion that it was necessary to change the way politics was working. She decided to go in for political activities and change the life of society for the better. Gabriela started her career with education. She studied political science at the Autonomous Technical Institute of Mexico, attended courses and seminars on political interaction, public management, and political theory in Mexico's educational institutions and abroad. At the age of 15, Ms. Baron entered the National Action Party. Already then, she knew that politics was her vocation. Taking different positions in the party, she gained a huge professional experience. Gabriela was not just an active member of the party, she rapidly developed in her political career. In her party, she changed several positions. Each of them assumed a great responsibility. Having a huge experience of more than 12 years working in the executive and legislative branches, she became a Mexican senator in 2012. Since 2012, she has been the head of her country's delegation to the IPU. As a member of the IPU, she pays much attention to such issues as supporting children, migrants, refugees, and women, as well as the programs of the Sustainable Development Agenda. During her visit to Bahrain, Ms. Gabriela Baron gave us some of her time, and we were able to record this special interview. Ms., can you tell us more about the current cooperations between the IPU and the Legislative Party in Bahrain, and what are the future aspects of collaboration?
Well, as you mentioned, it's not new for me to be working with parliamentarians from Bahrain. It has been a wonderful experience during many years. We started with a resolution. First, we had to lobby together to get this resolution approved as an item, and then on the content. So it was a complete year working together. It was a wonderful experience. I could witness how Bahraini parliamentarians are always willing to work together as a team in the same direction. They are supporting each other. So it was an amazing experience. Yes. Then, well, time goes on, and now I am the president of the Inter-Parliamentary Union. I had the Bahraini support, so I am also very thankful for that. And what can I say? During the last 4 days here in Bahrain, it has been an unbelievable experience. To see a country of tolerance, a country that is willing to be open, to look for different approaches in society and to speak about it with absolute freedom. So that's, I believe, one of the powerful messages that I have seen in Bahrain. And the other one, of course, is FOSIA. I am really happy. I tweet about it when it happened, to see how women are being empowered in Bahrain because they want to, because they are strong, because they are getting into campaigns and the people are voting for them. So that's the first step. But second, to have the first female speaker elected by the parliament, that's a very powerful message. And I believe that as IPU, as a woman, as a young parliamentarian, of course I am proud to see these results, but also I feel this important mandate to use the Bahraini voice, the Bahraini example, also in the rest of the world.
Ms. Gabriela Baron, at the IPU, you also worked with the Bahrain Parliament as a co-rapporteur previously on the role of parliamentarians in protecting the rights of children. How do you look back at that experience?
I believe that the first stage is that we need to understand that problems are not going to be respecting borders. Now, all important challenges in the world require cooperation, requires understanding, requires dialogue. And that's part also for the mandate to parliamentarians and to parliaments. We need to work for that understanding to happen. When we see all these international instruments, all these international agreements, we can imagine those like in UN, like very far from our realities. But the best way to translate these international agreements into local solutions are precisely the parliamentarians. Because even that the government is the one that negotiates those agreements, like the Paris Agreement, all the Sustainable Development Agenda, etc., we need to approve, to ratify these instruments into the national parliaments. And then to change our national legislation, to put it into budget, and of course to ask the government for accountability and results. So that's the best link between a population that is plural, that is represented into parliament with these international instruments.
True, for the good of the whole country at the end also.
And because if we want to change the world, we need to start from our own communities.
You're right. How do you value the effective political participation of women in decision-making processes and parliamentary action on global basis and in Bahrain in particular?
This has to be a mandate, because when we see the society's composition, women are a majority, we are a majority. But I don't know in which time we lost that track, and we stopped participating into the communities, into public life. So now we are having a different time, a different era. And we need that voice represented into parliament, because that's the only way to have really the plurality of the society represented into these representative organs. But also there's a certain agenda that is clear for women. We cannot have only a male perspective, because something is going to be missing always. And if we really are committed, if we really are willing to strengthen democracy, we need women. We need all society represented into these parliaments. And that's why for IPU, women voice, of course, is important, but also youth. We are always raising a campaign to ask young persons to be a young parliamentarian, to join these bodies, because we also need their voice and we need to build stronger generations.
Bahrain actually did organize something recently where they did ask some of the youth to basically come out and speak. And as you said, they had very different ideas than what we would think of, because they live in a new era, a new generation. Do you think it's mandatory to actually put something like in the curriculums for them to understand how the world works and how these parliamentarians are important for the visions of them, the next generation, and the visions of the country in the future?
We need to promote an intergenerational dialogue, because we cannot put it only like in a curriculum to tell them you have to learn from me, because they have their own experience and their own perspective from the world and from politics and everything. For example, my generation was the generation that started questioning in many ways. But if we add this new element of social media, of freedom for expressing whatever you want, well, that has one incentive to have a different narrative in politics and a new approach for politics. But then, if we incorporate the new technologies, for example, if you want to buy whatever you want, it's going to be very easy to go to your smartphone, put your credit card, and have that whatever thing you want almost immediately in front of your door. Our generation used to go to a cinema. We were waiting to have a movie and we were rushing to be able to go to that movie. Now you only need your remote control or maybe your cell phone. So all activities, all patterns are changing, and that is going to apply for politics. This generation is going to expect faster solutions because they have it in all the different aspects of their lives. So politics should also be faster, should be closer. So we need to design with them, not to be like preaching. We need to design with them a new model for governance that can really respond to these demands.
That is accurate, that is fast, and that has political decisions that are long-lasting, not something that are fast solutions.
And that are really including everything. What I can imagine is that at some point we're going to have some platforms to ask our own constituencies, maybe online, in real time, what they are thinking about something that we're discussing in parliaments.
The Interparliamentarian Union was established in 1889 in an era when there was no means for governments, parliaments, or MPs to work together internationally. Tell us more about the history of such a leading institution, and how do you value the continuous progress of its performance since that year?
Well, if we can imagine how was the world almost 130 years ago, a lot of things have happened.
Yeah.
And I believe that the best message that IPU is sending continuously to the parliament, to the people, to the parliamentarians, is the importance, the clear need for democracy. Yeah. Maybe democracy is not the fastest way to take solutions, but it is the one that is going to clearly respect and hear the voice of the people. Yeah. So we need to promote democracy. We need to promote and to explain why human rights are more needed than ever. Yes. There are some countries that are trying to say like a trade-off between security or fighting terrorism against human rights. Yes. And there is no trade-off. If you really want to have a safe place, you need human rights. Yes. So there are a lot of new challenges that are going to question democracy or human rights. IPU has been there again 130 years. Yeah. That means 2 world wars. That means a lot of changes in the map. I believe that's the most important message from IPU, that the parliaments and the parliamentarians are really important for democracy and for human rights.
And to bring it a little bit closer to home, when you talk about human rights and as well as the inhumane things that have been happening, we see, of course, terrorist organizations that have been fighting in countries and fighting against people, and also immigrants that have been given no choice in where to stay, where to put their children and to school and so on. And you are a big advocate for immigrant and an asylum. What can you tell us about your stance on that?
Well, the first thing is that finally we have 2 important instruments negotiated at the United Nations, which are the Global Compacts for Migration and for Refugees. Yeah. That was a very important process, complex but inclusive. Almost all countries joined these Global Compacts, and that gave us the next step to IPU, again to go to implementation, how we're going to translate these huge commitments into national and local realities. And that goes for millions and millions of people that are internally displaced, that are refugees, immigrants, that are being tortured in many cases, how we can manage to help migrants and refugees against all kinds of human trafficking. There are a lot of things happening and interrelated in the world. We cannot imagine now, for example, climate change without seeing the consequences in many populations, yes. Complete countries in the islands. True. So we need to understand that this world is affecting or benefiting all of us. Yes. And that's part of our duties and why IPU is important.
Perfect. More than 6.5 billion of the world's 7 billion people live in countries whose parliaments are members of the IPU. Can you tell us more about such integrations of varieties and how this can proceed in line with the Union's slogan that says, "For democracy, for everyone"?
IPU is trying to reach this universal membership. Yes, so we are almost all the countries around the world. That's a huge challenge. Yeah. We are the oldest, but also the most inclusive organization all around the world. Yeah. And we're trying to include more members. That's important, but that also gives us the possibility to establish a platform for dialogue. For example, during our last assemblies, we had the first meeting with the parliamentarians from North and South Korea. Yeah. We are trying also to have different kinds of dialogues for issues related to Middle East. Yeah. We're trying to solve those things, but also it's not only what is happening between 2 or more countries, also what happens sometimes within the same country. I mean, we're always and continuously asking the countries to send plural delegations with the governments and with the opposition, with the different composition in terms of gender, age, everything. Yes. Because dialogue starts in your own country. Yeah. So that's important, and that set us a very important example. But also, we believe that in the way that we can really implement these huge decisions, for example, with 178 countries that IPU has, we are making a huge effort for the Sustainable Development Agenda.
Yes.
The idea is not only to brief the parliamentarians about this. The idea is very clear. We have only 11 years to change this planet, to make it a more inclusive one. So if we can have in the same way 46,000 parliamentarians all around the world working into the same direction, I am absolutely sure that the parliaments can change this world.
Yes. Ms. Baron, your first encounter with politics was at the age of 15 when you joined the National Action Party, the PAN, or the PAN in Mexico. Tell us more about that start and how did this inspire you throughout your remarkable journey of success into politics and parliamentary work?
Well, I was inspired of many things that I have mentioned, and one is the possibility that politics gives you to change your own reality. Yeah. I am from Mexico, a huge country. We are 125 million population. Yeah. And of course we have challenges. We need to fight poverty. We need to work for equality. We need also to work for gender inclusion, for having girls into schools. The challenges might look really far, but they're not that different. Yes. So in terms of development, we need also to work very, very hard. And that is what inspired me to join politics when I was only 15 years old, because I believed that maybe NGOs are important, maybe to do whatever you need to do every day in a very good way is very important. But when you go not only from your private space, from your very personal space, doing things in the right way, but you go to the public space, to the community, that's politics. And that gives you the chance to have a better reality for you and for the next generations. So that was my commitment a lot of years ago, and it is still the same commitment.
Perfect. Well, just at the end, any words you can have or you have about your recent visit or your current visit to Bahrain, something that you would like to say?
I'm really happy to be here. I am looking forward to be here again soon. What I believe one of the most important surprises that I have seen is how close are the politicians with the needs of the communities. The clear commitment that His Highness the King has with ruling with complete openness this country. It has been a very good experience for me, and I am really thankful with Bahrain for this great opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Today, the IPU is the international organization of 178 parliaments that continues to work for peace, reconciliation, human rights, and equality in all its aspects, as well as for effective and inclusive parliaments that reflect and represent women, young people, indigenous people, and other segments of society. And this organization has an exceptional woman leading the way towards further development. We thank Ms. Baron for giving us this outstanding interview, and we thank you for watching and see you next week in another episode of Inside Edition.